Thank you all for coming back. I really appreciate you all as always. But I don't want to dwell too much into other stuff. I want to get into the show because today is kind of serious, a little bit of serious in terms of the things that I talk about. And let's start by going back a little bit. A few episodes ago, I don't remember how many, there was an episode that I entitled The Wheel of Protection. And in that episode, I talked about how men need to manage their egos better and how women need to protect their men by thinking about the larger ramifications before they call their men to handle issues for them that might involve the guys getting hurt or even worse. And while I won't get into the details of that episode, I strongly encourage you all to go back and listen to that episode because today's topic piggybacks on that. And I have to say, though, while you're going back to listen to that episode or watch that episode or whatever, don't forget to tell 50 friends to tell 50 friends because that's the important part. But to give you a little brief overview, besides the overview that I gave a couple of sentences back, that episode was about Will Smith's ego and maybe some subconscious or conscious pressure from his wife, making him go up and slap Chris Rock, which has him in the position that he's in today. And then I broaden that out to guys feeling that they need to defend their women in ways that can cause those men to be hurt, arrested, or worse, or whatever. And that brings me to today's topic, which points out the worst, quote unquote, in my last sentence. And, I mentioned hurt, arrested, or worse. And today's topic talks about the worst that can happen. And the worst or worst, to, to be grammatically correct in this case, happened to Adreian Payne. Adreian Payne, he played professional basketball in the NBA for a few years. He was drafted by the Atlanta Hawks. And while I don't know if he's officially retired, well, he's officially retired now. He hasn't been in the league in a while. Adreian Payne's 31 years old, or he was 31 years old, which kind of gives you an indication as to what has happened to him. So now follow me on this. And for the record, what I'm going to tell you, the story is based on information that I personally read in the court documents. Adreian Payne's girlfriend got a call from one of her homegirls one morning. And the homegirl was complaining about issues that she was having with her man. The homegirl was having issues with her man. Adreian Payne's girlfriend, as she says in the court documents, she was thinking that she could serve as a quote unquote mediator between the two, mediator being her word. She was thinking that she could serve as a mediator between the two. So, and she had claimed that she had done that in the past. She decided, Adrian's girlfriend decided to go over her homegirl's house to quote unquote mediate. One way or another, Adreian Payne wound up going with his girlfriend over to her homegirl's house. Now, we don't know why. It didn't say in the court documents why he decided to go. My guess is that, when a man hears that his woman is going to a fighting couple's house, the man usually wants to accompany his woman just in case the mediation, quote unquote, doesn't go well. Makes sense. On a side note, for my decades living on this earth and experiencing and seeing relationships work in the way that they work, usually a good percentage of the time, when a woman calls her homegirl to complain about her man mistreating her in her home and she gets involved in her homegirl stuff, that usually winds up escalating things and not necessarily calming things down. I don't want to talk bad about you ladies out there, but you know, I don't know how many women are truly objective when they hear their homegirls complaining about their men in one way or another. But because of that, that's what makes me seriously question the whole thing about the quote unquote mediation. And I'm guessing that Adreian Payne, the boyfriend in this case, Adreian Payne, the person, the subject of this whole thing, I'm sure he felt that way as well. I'm sure that he had an idea that the mediation wouldn't go well as well. But of course, that part is just speculation on my part. Either way, speculation or not, shockingly, not really, things did escalate. So Adreian Payne and his girlfriend, they jump in the car and they go over to her homegirl's house. Um, and it seems that the homegirl shares her crib with the boyfriend that she was fighting with. And the boyfriend actually said that he'd been living with her for the past 2 months, or they've been living together for the past 2 months, one of the two. Anyway, Adreian Payne and his girlfriend, they pulled up at the house, and they just happened to pull up at the house just as the homegirl's boyfriend was being dropped off at the house by his dad. So that just adds another area of interest to this whole thing, because if the homegirl was calling and Adreian Payne's girlfriend was going over there, the impression that I would have had and did have when I read the story was that the homegirl was arguing with dude, like they were beefing, but dude was out with his dad. So if excuse me, if they had gotten into an argument, it wasn't right then. Maybe it was the night before, whatever. But it was just odd that she called Adreian Payne's girlfriend that morning, and they decided to go over there that morning. And as they were going over there, he was pulling up, being dropped off by his dad. And as he was getting out of the car, he sees Adreian Payne and the girlfriend. And some kind of way, there was a conversation that turned into an argument between Adreian Payne and the boyfriend. Again, so much for the mediation. And to make a long story short, the boyfriend shot and killed Adreian Payne. So that brings me back to the male ego thing, and being put in a position that you shouldn't be put into. The one that I spoke about in the will of protection episode. Excuse me. Adreian Payne's girlfriend was involved in business that wasn't hers. And while she can describe herself as a quote unquote mediator, and notice how I keep saying quote unquote, her quote unquote mediation didn't appear to be welcomed by the boyfriend of the homegirl. And she, Adreian Payne's girlfriend, knowing Adreian Payne's demeanor, I mean, they were dating and had been dating for a minute. So I'm sure she knew his escalation point, his triggers, or whatever. But she, knowing his demeanor, she should have known that taking him there for protection or whatever wasn't going to be a good move. If she felt, or if Adreian Payne felt for that matter, that he needed to be there with her, then neither one of them should have been there. And now, as a result of all of that, he's dead. And he's dead because of possibly his own ego, or her refusal to protect him by keeping him out of that situation. Because when he was confronted by the boyfriend, of course, a man's going to be a man. He's going to step up. Adreian Payne is 6'10". The boyfriend was 5'8". So the boyfriend is now claiming that, well, he was claiming from the jump, but he is claiming that it was self-defense. He's claiming that it was a stand your ground situation because they were in Florida. Um, Shout out to Trayvon Martin's memory. So they were in Florida. He's claiming stand your ground. He was 5'8". Adreian Payne was 6'10". He said he felt threatened. And as such, he pulled out his gun and shot Adreian Payne. Adreian Payne is now dead. And ego is involved, but also Adreian Payne's girlfriend didn't really give him a soft place to land and put him in a situation that he never should have been in. Neither one of them should have been in, mediating a couple that is arguing. That's not your business. That's just not your business. And she didn't, in the argument, she didn't say, the court documents didn't say that there was any kind of domestic violence or anything like that. As a matter of fact, Adreian Payne's girlfriend said that she was going over there, hopefully to mediate, to prevent any domestic violence from happening. But also, you see, when they got there, he wasn't even there, or he was just getting there. So I don't know. It's just a mess. It's just a mess all the way around. And the bottom line is, um, all of that could have been avoided by minding your own business, not letting your ego get in the way, and and not protecting dude in the way that you should protect your man, in the same way that a man should protect his woman, in the way that Adreian Payne was trying to protect his woman by going with her to that place, in that situation. And yeah, it's just a shame that it wound up that way. Um, so you know. So on that, I'll just say, men, we, the ego is a powerful thing, and if you're a man, you definitely know that the ego is a powerful thing. But with that said, we have to keep those things in check. You know, we can't allow our egos to put us in situations that will wind up leading us down a bad path. And furthermore, excuse me again, I know that this isn't going to be a popular perspective amongst men, but there's no shame in walking away. There really is not. Live to fight another day, or live not to fight at all, but live. That's the whole thing. And ladies, you need to stop playing and catering to these egos and putting men in these positions. Because again, if she hadn't gotten involved with her homegirl's relationship, Adreian Payne would be alive. Now, obviously, she didn't know that things were going to end up that way. And it's not fair to blame her for ultimately what happened. She didn't shoot him, but still, they did end up that way. And they do end up that way too often, when there's a woman talking about, I'm going to get my homeboy, I'm going to get my man, I'm going to get my husband. And yeah, and next thing you know, something bad has happened. And all because that dude, when she went and got her man or boyfriend or her husband, her man, boyfriend, or husband, and say, nah, I'm not doing that. So take it for what it's worth. Go back and listen to the Will of Protection episode. I feel so bad about the Adreian Payne situation, because I literally just talked about the Will of Protection thing and all of that. And then to see it happen like that to somebody that I don't know personally, but someone that I am familiar with, from his college days of playing basketball, and he was drafted by the Atlanta Hawks. And it's a shame that it wound up that way. But that's that. That's all I have to say about that. Let me close by talking about something else, since we're on this old death train. Let me talk about Kevin Samuels for a second. And and honestly, I don't really care, at least right now, to get into, the broadening divide between men and women, that broadening divide that led to his popularity in the first place, or people like Vivica A. Fox saying that his death was karma. As if you deserve to die for saying something negative about someone else. I think that's a little extreme, and it says a lot about Vivica. Probably more about Vivica than it does about Kevin Samuels. It's interesting, though, that as I record this, I just watched Kevin Samuels on the latest episode of the show Atlanta. I don't know how many people watch that show, but I was about to say it's a good show. It was a good show. I don't know what it is this season, but it was interesting that right after his death, he makes an appearance on that show. But that's neither here nor there. Um, it, but going back to the Vivica A. Fox thing and how she's talking about his death as karma, it just kind of amazes me how someone that has no impact on your life, that you don't know personally, that you will allow them to affect you that much that you celebrate their death. It's kind of odd. And I'm sure Vivica will be like, I ain't celebrating his death. I'm just saying. But still, I don't know. Just like spitting on somebody's grave or whatever. I mean, I didn't agree with everything that he said. I agree with a lot of what he said, though. I think the thing that I objected to more so than anything was his delivery. But with all of that said, that's not really what I want to talk about. I don't want to litigate his life and the polarization between men and women and all that stuff, like I said earlier. Yeah, I don't care about that right now. But that man, depending on which reports you read, he was either 56 years old or 57 years old. Now, people that listen to this show regularly, they know that I'm always campaigning for people that make, excuse me, I'm always campaigning for people that make up this demographic of this show to stay on top of their health. And this particularly applies to Black people. 56 or 57 is way too young to die. Now, I'm not mad that he died the morning after having sex, but with all of that said, the fact that I guess his heart couldn't take it at 56 years old is not a good thing. And for as popular as Kevin Samuels was, or as much money as he claims to have had, because he did claim to be balling like that, it doesn't really matter now. You know, that money could have been spent, or at least some of that money could have been spent on health insurance. And if he had health insurance, it could have been spent on a physical. The thing that's interesting about people, when bad things happen to them, and in his case, I'm assuming it was a heart attack. I think that's safe to say. But when bad things happen to people and death is the result of it, when they fall over dead, that's usually not the first experience that they've had. I'm sure that he's felt something in the past where he was like, maybe I should go get this checked out. I feel kind of weird or something like that. It's just bad. And for people that listen to this show often, they know that I'm always, like I said, getting on people about going to the doctor. People, for the 100th time on this 100 and have I gotten to 110 yet? Well, let's say 110 to be on the safe side. In 110 episodes, I will say again, go to the doctor, eat better, exercise, and get therapy, because I tell you what, your mental health is just as important as your physical health. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And especially again in my community, where therapy is seen as like the devil. Nah, go get therapy. And I'm not talking about just going to see the church pastor. Go to somebody who's licensed to help you out with whatever bothers you. And do that while you're exercising, eating better, and going to the doctor. Yeah. Basically, do what you need to do to survive longer than 57 years. Feeling bad mentally and physically isn't something that just happens to you as you're getting older. It's not something that you should just accept. It's not something that you're just like, well, I'm feeling older. These aches and pains, I guess it'll be expected. Nah, they're not. Obviously, you're not going to feel the way that you did when you were 21, but you don't need to feel bad either. So that's it. That's enough of my lecture today. I am done with the lecturing and all of that stuff. I am done with this episode, as a matter of fact. And before I go, Reggie, come and say something to the people. No? Well, that's Reggie for you. He is who he is. But I'm here, and I'll continue to be here because I'm always here. And until the next time, take care of yourselves, people. And we need to love one another. Men love your women, women love your men. Everybody go stay on top of your health mentally and physically. Man, just love each other for a change and stop all this fighting and bickering and stuff like that. And while sometimes it's funny, for the most part, it's pretty annoying. Women are annoyed, men are annoyed, everybody's annoyed. So let's stop being annoyed. Let's get along for a change. All right, I'm done here. All right, goodbye.